So it's time to leave the tip. Maybe you're with your buddies, maybe you're even on a date. You don't want to look cheap, you don't want to spend too much money, and you don't want to break out a calculator and look like a nerd in front of the other people. So here's a real quick, easy way to help you calculate the amount of tip that you should leave when you're out and about. Hi, this is Todd at the Land of Math. In this video, we're going to look at how you can real quickly calculate the amount of money you need to leave for a 10%, a 20%, and also a 15% tip, which are usually like the norms in the industry. So all that's coming up next on the Land of Math. All right, let's look at a couple ways that we can estimate a tip. So let's say you have a $120 meal and you want to find out what is 10% of it. Just by moving the decimal one time to the left, you'll find out what is 10% of 120. In this case, it would be 12. So $12 would be a 10% tip. If we double that amount to $24, that would give us a 20% tip. And let's say you want something in between. Find out what is half of 12, which would be 6, add it to the 12, and that'll give you $18. So $18 would be a 15% tip in this example. Here's another one. If you have $70 meal, find out 10%, so we move that decimal one time to the left, and we get 7. So $7 would be 10% of this meal. Just like the last time, we're going to double it. So we double 7 to get 14. That would be a 20% tip. And then if you want something in between, find out half of 7, which is $3.50, add it to the 7, and we get $10.50. That would be a 15% tip. A lot of times when we're leaving tips, though, we don't leave like necessarily cents. So what we could do is round it off. So we could round it down to $10, or we could round it up to $11. Either way is fine. You're close to the 15%. The nice thing about 10 is if you add the $10 tip to a $70 meal, you get $80. So sometimes it's kind of nice to have a nice round number. So here's another one. This one actually has dollars and cents. So just like the last time, we're moving the decimal one time to the left. So in this example, we would get $2.45. The $2.45 would represent our 10% tip. But like I said before, a lot of times we don't leave cents when we're leaving tips, and especially something like 45 cents. So we might round this off to say $2.50 if we just want to make it a little friendlier number. So it's about 10%. It's not exactly 10%. But this makes it easier if we're trying to double stuff. So if we double the $2.50, that would be $5. So the $5 would be 20% tip in that situation, or approximately. And then if we want to split the difference there, half of $2.50 would be $1.25. So you could add $1.25 to $2.50, and so $3.75 would be like a 15% tip. Now, kind of like the last time, this is one of those situations where I'd probably just round it up to $4, just again to make it a nice whole number. Even when we did round it up to $4, it only changed it from 15% to 16%. So it's not a big difference. So you can see all these numbers right here. We're just these are approximate amounts. So let's say we take the total cost of the meal, which was $24.50, and let's say we decided to leave a 20% tip. So we went with the $5. So that's a pretty good tip. So we're leaving the $5, and we end up with $29.50. In this situation, a lot of people would just go ahead and round it up to the nearest dollar and make a nice even $30. And so you might say to yourself, what kind of a tip am I looking at then? Well, it's really not that far away from a 20% tip. It's about a 21.6% tip, which seems to be still very reasonable. All right, our next example, let's say at a meal is $37.91. We move it over one spot, so it's $3.79 for a 10% tip. Again, just like before, I would probably just turn this into $4. If we make it $4, that's about a 10% tip. It's going to be a tiny bit more, but not much more. So that's what you have there. If you want to find out what a 20% tip is, it's really easy now. Just double the 4, you get $8. So $8 is about a 20% tip. And if we want to split the difference there, and if we're looking at a 15% tip, just find half of 4, which is 2, and add the 2 to the $4, and you get 6. So $6 is about 15%. Well, I hope these 4 examples were helpful. If they were, please give it a thumbs up. We'd love it if you would join us here at the Land of Math, so feel free to subscribe. And until next time, we'll see you on the Land of Math.